y'all should be able to hear Mr. Blue here. TradePhantoms.com. Bloomberg. Okay. Mr. Blue here, TradePhantoms.com. I'm going to run through about maybe an hour, give or take, of some pre-market prep. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend, kicking off a new month, April 1st, 2025. Spring is in the air, birds are chirping, pollen is pollinating. And a new month, a new quarter, so interesting, cool. Anyways, just real quick for folks that are just kind of visiting the channel, TradePhantoms.com backdrop, how we trade is institutional demand to institutional supply, starting from what's called a top-down multiple time frame approach, multiple time frame analysis, monthly, weekly, daily, new month, right? March is over. So I say that to say this, make sure you are mapping out how your last month's high and last month's low on the products that you are trading, Forex, stocks, futures, Forex, options, crypto, whatever it is that you're trading. So make sure you're mapping out, how that candle closed on the monthlies, mainly like, so for example, like on the indexes, we had a down March, right? Markets pulled back, right? So you map those out, last month's high, last month's low. I do color code things so you know what time frames they are designated on. So orange is monthly, yellow is weekly, daily is kind of blue. So anything that you see in those specific colors has to do with those corresponding time frames. Look, candlesticks, there's a bunch of fancy names. Location being most important to where these should be located. These are the bullish ones, great. Here's the bearish ones, the main ones, the active ones that you can execute off of. This is bearish candlesticks, location being most important, of course, in supply in the context of downtrends. And the almighty liquidity map here, super important here. We always typically reference this at Phantoms, and Phantoms there, Phantoms land. All right, that said, what's going on here today in the markets? Yesterday was a awesome day. Hopefully everybody had a good trading day. But I'll start off here, I'll start off here with futures. So I'll go over here to Thinkorswim. Okay, hard to see a little bit, I get it, with all the notes and things like that. I got the S&P futures upper left, NASDAQ futures upper right, Dow Jones lower left, Russell 2000 bottom right. Kind of what I was doing, just really briefly too, real quick, and as always, as I mentioned right before we dove into the charts here, make sure you're looking at the monthly and the weekly and the daily, right? Right now, just looking at the daily just really quickly here. I did just go over into because you can kind of see the kind of clean chart here without all of the levels kind of mapped out on it. So, long story short, of course, we had this nice little drop. The futures market here, this is Dow Jones futures, for example, here. We had a bounce, right? We had a bounce. Futures did not make a new lower low. The NASDAQ and the S&P, QQQs, SPY, SPX, and the did indeed make a new lower low yesterday for the month of March. Okay, as you can see, futures have not. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, we're still kind of we're still trying to sift out whether or not this drop that we've had in the market is going to be an ultimate low or not. Okay, now we did take out the low, as you'll notice when I go over to the SPY and the Qs, as mentioned in the SPX. We did take out the March low. Okay, so this chart might not help as much as in my head. It seemed like it was going to be a bit better to explain, but probably not. I should probably just go to the S&P regarding the indexes itself here. So I'll start off with SPY. All right, so here's SPY on a daily time frame on the right, and I got a weekly time frame here on the left. All right, yesterday we had a gap down, and we moved up pretty significantly off that gap down. Last week's close, we had a pretty bearish bar. All right, pretty bearish bar. Last week we had a bit of a gap up, rally up into supply, and then we sold off. Right, for mainly the damage was done on Friday. Friday kind of allowed this market to kind of break down and broke all these kind of mid levels in here. Okay, we did kind of have some levels up here kind of mapped out. I was expecting it to kind of get a little bit higher. We couldn't. Okay, I put in a little bit of a morning star, evening star here. Red bar closed, negative COG. Then we had Thursday and Friday. Friday mainly continuation. They are lower. Now we did put in this weekly bar here that is pretty significant to the downside here. Okay. Now we did gap down yesterday. If I kind of zoom in on the daily, we closed there on Friday. We gapped down yesterday. We flushed out just a little bit here. There was some massive positive gamma that we would talk about. It's a little advanced for YouTube right now, but the point I'm trying to make here is even though yesterday was a gap down, we came into a certain level regarding the gamma flow. We also had that 55.65 JP Morgan caller unwind, so it was in their best, kind of in their best interest to have it rally up, which it did. Okay, on the SPX. However, we didn't really break anything here to the upside. Okay, so this was kind of a little bit of a rally here, as I was mentioning here with the Dow Jones did not show. Dow Jones futures did not show was that, as you can see, the SPY made a new lower low for the month of March. So the last day, yesterday of March, we did tag a new lower low right there, right? So it was a kind of like a little dead cat bounce here, and then last week did some damage here, made a new low. Now we do have some levels lower down here as well. Okay, typically Mondays we go over Mondays. I host for Phantoms members. I host kind of a Monday kind of prep where we kind of go over the higher time frames, albeit the monthlies, the weekly time frame, and the daily time frames as well, kind of just mapping out levels for the week, so on and so forth. Okay, we get this September low on the SPY, comes in at about 539.44. Okay, so in the event that we do continue to maybe drop, I'm not sure if we're going to make a new low again here today, potentially. Okay, but you might want to be looking out for this area here of demand to the lower left. And again, you can see some orange and yellows, so that lets me know that it's associated with the monthly low being September low, and we have a weekly level of demand down in here. Okay, we also have this yearly VWAP here on SPY that is from last year, I should say. Okay, so we're kind of rebalancing all from last year. Okay, so we got some levels down in here. Yeah, Eric here turned out to be trading SPX because yesterday was a awesome day for movement. But that said, so we have this level up here. I'm sorry, down here. All right, as you can see right now, SPYs. While I'm here, we'll go to S&P futures in a moment here, but I just wanted to paint that picture that we did make that new low there. Close here yesterday on the daily time frame. We do have a slight gap down. As you can see, futures are down slightly, as we were mentioning here. So it still would be an inside gap. All right. It's going to probably remain that way, right? As far as news, I usually check this in the morning here. Today is obviously Tuesday. Nothing much, but we do have at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time JOLTS data, JOLTS job opening and ISM manufacturing. So if you are trading the open, make sure that you're aware of that news tag at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, that could provide some kind of movement 30 minutes after the open. Okay, of course, markets open at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so we have a slight gap down. There's a couple other things that we look at too. Just GEX with it's kind of advanced here, and we also use this thing called options depth as well. Okay, so we do have some light gamma here. Yesterday was pretty fun. It was a negative GEX. Today it's not as fun as yesterday, but I don't even want to go into explaining this right now. But we do have a gamma regime shift below. If we can get below the 5570 handle, we go into a little bit of a negative GEX environment here, highlighted in slightly red here with the yellow line right here as well, which is what's called a gamma tro, which is where markets could kind of flush down a little bit here. So markets could potentially, if we do continue to drop lower, can find some potential support. Now this could change intraday. Could find some support here at 5515s. Okay, where we have a high gamma node here on a positive GEX profile. If we get below 5500, could be a little bit of a flush down there too. 5480 on the SPX is also going to be an area where we could find some support on the upper end. We have We have a ton of stuff up here, but we would have to get above 56.20 to potentially get some kind of flush to the upside, even further up into the 56.50, where we have another high gamma node here. Okay, so we're kind of in the middle of, Fridays. I would say Fridays kind of drop down, and then Monday's gap down, rally up. So today's going to be pretty interesting here. So if I go to the SPX, for example, here, okay, again, same thing here, weekly time frame on the left, daily time frame on the right. All right, yesterday put in a nice little day there, 5,500. Okay, so that's gonna, we got some GEX levels here, if you will, coming in potentially at the 55.25. Now SPX implied open is going to be roughly. I'll just use SPY as an example here. I can look at my other screen, but 0.4% down so far. I could just use this as a base case here. All right, we're gonna be opening up probably around the 55.90, 55.85-ish, give or take. Okay, so if we do snap a low off the open, this 55.80 and even this 60, okay, we could have a bit of a flush down into the 30s and 25s, as mentioned. All right, it's a little advanced there. All right, I just wanted to kind of put that on the radar. Okay, of course we have getting back to the daily time frame here as well. I guess I'll use SPYs as an example. We do have, of course, mapping out yesterday's high, yesterday's low here. Okay, we do have some retest levels up here. Last month's VWAP in March is going to be up here, so 567-ish, which is also going to be Friday's high. That is going to be an area of interest today in the event that we rally up into here. So that's something that you might want to put on your radar. SPY 565 handle, give or take, somewhere up here. All right, so for some supply, that would be equivalent in the SPX. I already have it mapped out, 56.75 up into the 5700 area here. Okay, and we have a high gamma node there as well in the SPX. All right, but let me start this off a bit. Typically, I'll go over futures. So got S&P upper left, now Dow Jones upper right. I'm sorry, NASDAQ upper right, Dow Jones low left, Russell 2000 bottom right. I'll pop open the daily time frame of the S&P futures, okay, and kind of zoom in here. All right, right now, yeah, pretty quiet right now. For now, we got VIX. I'll go to the VIX in a moment, up about 1.3%. Yesterday, VIX gapped up, but faded down. We'll get to that in a moment. Map out yesterday's high, map out yesterday's low. So far overnight, kind of quiet overnight session. I'll drop down to the smaller time frames in a moment. S&P futures daily time frame is what you're looking at right here. And as mentioned, right, we had, this is last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday's big drop. Okay, so if in the event that we kind of rally up into here, Friday's high would be something that we want to be looking at as well. We get the 200 pair moving average here hovering here. We get the 20 pair moving average hovering here as well on the daily time frame. So there's a lot of stuff up here, if you will. So if in the event that this market continues to rally and you're long intraday, I would suggest a TP. And this could be some areas here potentially of supply. We'll map out our Globex highs, Globex lows for some Globex traps up here. I already have a couple levels mapped out, as you see as well, up here, 57.70 up here. Okay, and then we have a daily high here, 57.80, which is going to be kind of the random kind of Thursday's high. Okay, so I'll just make that note here. All right, this could just be a G trap short. Globex trap short. We cover what that is in due time. All right, and then lower. If we in the event that we go lower, S&P futures 55.10, 55.09, 55.10 rounding is that low point on the S&P futures. Okay, and so in the event that we do kind of go lower, we could be seeing some a new low even in S&P futures. Okay, and I would also want to clear or compare, I should say, compare that into the SPY and the SPX September low coming down into here. Okay, so make sure that you're mapping that out and drawing those parallels there. Okay, so I'll keep it short and sweet and simple for right now. Okay, because we would have to do some damage, take out yesterday's low on the S&P futures, and then take out this this March low in S&P futures in order to get lower. So I'll be referencing this by the SPX regarding that. Okay, Nasdaq for the most part a bit more weaker than the S&P futures. So you can see we had a nice drop down, mainly due to Friday, as aforementioned. And then yesterday put in a little bit of a hammer bar here. Okay, got a wick down here. We did have some levels down here mapped out, which is kind of insane. Kind of hit, 18,000, 18,875, 18,900. Yesterday's low, 18,976.75. So a point and 3 ticks away from that prior day's low. So we talk about this thing called liquidity, right? Liquidity, so equal to or new low. Anybody who sold short yesterday on those new lows got their face ripped off as this market just kind of ripped up to the upside there. So as always, want to focus on demand, supply, and understanding when, where, and why to buy or to sell or sell short. Okay, anybody who sold short as markets were kind of down yesterday, got crushed. Now we could potentially continue to go lower. Okay, but that day yesterday was not the day to do that. Okay, things were gapping down, but they were gapping down into levels, which I'll get to in a moment as well. All right, I'll just drop down. So if we rally up, okay, there's Friday's high, right? Yeah, of course, yesterday's high, yesterday's low. You want to map that out, of course. If we do kind of rally up, okay, this hammer bar could provide a little bit of some movement to the upside here. And I would also reference that that Friday's high. That Friday's high comes in on the Nasdaq futures up here at what is this? 20,011.75. So running up to 20,012. 20,012. So that's something that you might want to be looking at potentially, okay, just for an area of supply. All right, we also have the 20 period moving average here hovering at or around Friday's high as well. Okay, I'll drop down to the smaller time frames here, map out our Globex highs and lows for our Globex traps. All right, for you new folks in here for the channel, for the tube, got monthly here on the left, weekly here in the middle, daily on the right, monthly, weekly, daily. Drop down to the smaller time frames here. Got the 60-minute time frame upper left, just to give you the lay of the land here. 30-minute time frame bottom left, 5-minute time frame here in the middle, followed by the 2-minute time frame here on the right. Multiple time frame analysis. First order of business here. This gray space is what's called, this is Thinkorswim. It grays out the overnight session. So we have an overnight low, or what's called a Globex low, just a fancy word for overnight low. Chicago Mercantile Exchange calls it the Globex overnight. So that comes in represented by this blue line here, about 56.16, 56.17, give or take. All right, Globex high. The highest point that we went overnight is roughly right here, represented by this blue line that I'm moving at or around what? 56.63.5, 56.64. All right, rounding up and down, give or take. Okay, so you can see after yesterday's, and you can see we have 56.60 down here for our Globex trap long. So you have to be careful with those traps. All right. Anyways, I digress. All right, so we got that hammer. We had a nice rally yesterday. Okay, and then overnight, we're just kind of basing here, right? We're just kind of basing here. All right, yes, uncertainty. Tomorrow, the 2nd being tariff day, quote unquote. Everybody and their grandmother is talking about that right now, right? Yes, it's happening. Base. Okay, yes, I'm aware of the news and the things that are going around, geopolitical wise and all this kind of stuff. Yes, but at the end of the day, as a professional trader, just trade your setup and trade your edge and trade demand, supply, and the tape, and you'll be all right. There's always going to be some kind of news wrapped around something. That's called life. All right, 5 years from now, we'll be talking about something new, and people will be, pulling their hair out. Everything. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and trade the setups. That said, if we do break Globex high and we do rally up, we have supply above. Okay, might want to map out yesterday's high being right there, as aforementioned. Okay, as we continue to rally potentially up, we have the 5,700 S&P futures, where we did have a baby little demand zone right there. On Friday, got absolutely annihilated. Okay, so there's not much. This would just be what's called like a flip zone here. Okay, so just be careful with that. If we look up and left, we do have some supply S&P futures up here that I was kind of looking at this morning. All right, there's a supply zone here. Very obvious one, but nice little drop that kicked off Friday's sell-off and drop down in here. All right, so I'll put a price tag on that real quick on this. Very obvious level, so we might want to be careful with this. Everybody, even if they're not even trained at a high level of demand supply. You can probably see this level, so those obvious levels are always a little tricky there. But in all fairness, 57.30, I'll say 35 as a level of supply above the Globex where we could have potentially a Globex trap short. If you're long, TP take some profit, and this could be a G trap short. All right, I also have still mapped out that 57.70 and the 57.80 to 70s in the 80s, with the 57 in the front, S&P futures, and that's also on the radar potentially today in the event that we rally up here. This could be an area where if you're long, take some profit, and then it could potentially take a potential Globex trap short. Okay, and if you're super bearish on this overall market, which you definitely could be if you would like, then this could be also an area up here as we rally up into some higher time frame supply, because now that we had a new lower low on the SPX and the SPY and the Qs, this formed what's called a level in control. Okay, we still have that 58, 55, and the 5900 up here, but we got a couple of bridges and supply levels to cross before we get up there, right? So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Globex low, I mean, we could use yesterday's low, of course, in this whole area here. We only dipped, we kind of reversed very quickly yesterday off of this, right? Now we have to be careful with this level of demand lower down here in the event that this market picks up some steam lower. And, say, for example, GAX is negative and we're in a negative regime and we have VIX up, this level could get taken out, right? This level could get taken out. All right, I got 54.90 lower in the event that S&P futures do make a new lower low. Okay, so you might want to map that out, 54.90. Okay, but before we get there, in the event that we don't make a new low on the S&P futures, okay, you can reference this 55.60, which is that area of demand yesterday where we just kind of swiped lower and then took off on a nice little rally to the upside. Okay, NASDAQ futures. Straight to the point, Globex high, Globex low. Here's the low. Here's the high. All right, demand below Globex low. As mentioned, we can reference yesterday's kind of area and level. Now, NASDAQ has been generally more weaker. Okay, tech's been getting bullied. So that said, want to be a bit more conservative here. You might want to be careful with these levels here. We had a little bounce here, a little bounce here, a little bounce here. I'm just going to clean this up so there's no confusion. All right, so you might want to be referencing this area. Now, there is a level of demand kind of here and here. These are aggressive right below here. So here's Globex low. We're looking for an institutional level of demand below the Globex low. We do have a little level right here. We have a level right here too, but we have to be careful with this because, again, like I said, with like the S&P, if we pick up steam, if this is a base break lower and we get some steam and some momentum, these levels could just get cooked, okay, crushed. So that being said, I say all that to say this: you might want to reference yesterday's low down in here as more conservative for some liquidity tag in here, which comes in at about 18,975, just rounding. I got 18,900 below that as well for a potential Globex trap. All right, if short, TP, and we could take a little bit of a bounce off of here. Okay, now if you're aggressive, for aggressive traders out here, okay, we do have a level right here. We also, again, like I said, I'd be a little careful here. You can get NASDAQ here. All right, we could reference this point here, 19,135, rounding down. All right, now I'm going to put an aggressive asterisk on this. It's aggressive. G-trap long. And did I mention that this is going to be aggressive? Okay, 19,135. So just be careful with that one. Again, NASDAQ has been relatively more weaker on this market pullback that we've been experiencing overall in the overall indexes. All right, S&P's touched about, 9-10% lower. NASDAQ 14, 15%, give or take, lower. All right, just a little bit more weaker. That's all. All right, Globex trap higher in the event that we rally up. Okay, of course, we have this supply zone here that I would be remiss by not mentioning at or around 19,975. Birds are chirping. I feel like I'm in a freaking Disney movie right now. Birds are just chirping. All right. So that's pretty much the lay of the land. Oh, I will mention too, this was a nice weekly level that was like hitting, boom, hitting, holding up the market kind of mid-range, right? Then Friday said, yeah, see you gone, boom, new low, right? So we could reference this 19,600 as well as a retest level here. All right, but just be careful with that one there. All right, that would be aggressive, but you can reference that as well in the event that we don't continue higher and break this. Okay, so 19,600. It was a prior weekly low. We broke it. Okay, so now it's a retest on the other side, 19,600. All right, so that was NASDAQ futures and S&P futures on a 1 hour time frame. All right, transitioning over here into the VIX. We still get the VIX. In short, VIX up, market down, VIX down, market up. A lot more to that, more advanced. A lot more to that. VIX is the implied volatility of the SPX options, S&P, 30 days out. All right, just using Friday as a base case, right? Example case study, you know, as the markets were dropping, VIX was just like ripped to the upside. Like yesterday, we had a gap up on VIX as the markets were gapping down, but then VIX faded down lower all day. Right, so you got to map out the VIX. So we know where we are on the higher time frames on said VIX. You know, we're painting a VIX, 22. So volatility is elevated. It's not extreme. It's not super low. It's not super extreme. We're kind of just in the middle of uncertainty, right? Yes, the word uncertainty, the word that's been used a gazillion times, just in the month of March alone. All right, but it's true. It's true. Very uncertain right now with everything that's going around. Globex low here, we're mapping out that as well on the VIX. This is the VIX on a smaller time frame here. You can see yesterday's a gap up, right, and just fade lower. All right, kind of just map out. We're kind of in the middle of the overnight range, so to add kind of salt to the uncertainty, VIX is kind of in the middle right now. It's elevated for the day, for the morning, I should say, up about 1%. Nothing too crazy. All right, and that's not an outlier. Okay. Friday was an outlier where VIX was up, almost 10% or something like that, give or take, as I remember. But that, that's pretty significant there. All right, but we'll just map that out and we'll see how that unravels throughout the day. All right, kind of already went over SPYs. All right, psych gap down. Qs, QQQ. Again, you can see we made a new lower low. So the Qs, okay, we already talked, I think I talked a little bit about this too. Q's got another level here, September low for liquidity sweep that I'm looking at potentially here this is below 447.84, which was September's low. All right, and there could be a bit of a liquidity sweep right below there. All right, but we're not there yet, right? So you can see the market made another new lower low impulse here from last week. Okay, so we were kind of just talking about, hey, even if this market were to rally back up, we have some supply levels here that we can potentially lean against in the event that we correct up here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. All right, psych gap down. All right, so we got a lower level of demand here. Call it the 450 to the 447, and we have some supply up here. Okay, 477, and then I'm looking at also the 485 handle up here. This is QQQs on a daily time frame. All right, that's just kind of giving the lay of the land here for today. All right, unfilled gap here as well from Friday, 481. You might want to map that out. All right, most sectors right now, if I'm looking at the overnight, right? All the sectors here, from XLK, tech, all the way down to utilities, S&Ps. Most sectors are down right now. Real estate's up a bit there. Utilities, so a little bit of safe haven moves. Safe haven sectors, XLP staples are kind of coming up, creeping. Okay, utilities creeping. Healthcare creeping up to the upside. We go through. So energy still in the forefront here. Bit of relative strength. Still a little hard to trust, but it is still holding top lead there. Staples went from very weak to getting more stronger here, so that's a bit more. Gold all-time highs, right? Staples and utilities kind of up here too in terms of relative strength in terms of the sectors. So that's going to be a bit more defensive, if you will, right? But most sectors right now are red over the overnight session, with a high emphasis on technology, because technology is the most weighted sector there, down about 0.3. So we'll see if that continues. That might provide a little bit of heaviness on the of the market. These are the select spiders. These are just the if you go sector, if you type in Google sector, SECTOR, and then abbreviate spiders, SPDRS, sector spiders. That is the 11 sector breakdown of the S&P 500. Real estate, energy, utilities, technology, materials, staples, discretionary, industrials, communications, healthcare, financials, so on and so forth. Okay, so you're going to break down this market through sectors. All right. Bitcoin hovering, it needs to move out of this mid-range here, but go lower. I want Bitcoin lower. Go lower, go lower, go lower, so I can just buy more. Anyways, I digress. Apple's been holding up relative strength, so I got the weekly time frame on the left. All right, weekly time frame on the left. Yeah, no problem, Ness. Got the weekly time frame on the left. I got the daily time frame on the right. Apple's been holding up relative strength. So while other stocks have been making new lows, Apple did not. Apple has not. Okay. Now, Apple's been like this. Apple's been like this for 2025 so far, only 3 months in, right? But Apple's been, it was like this earlier too, where it was kind of holding up strength up here, and then Apple gave out. Apple gave out. So while the other stocks were kind of like already gave out and were kind of holding a little bit of some bids, then Apple woke up and went lower. So Apple likes to play a little game sometimes, just the way it's been, it's been kind of a sneaky little, holding up strength, and all of a sudden, it would drop lower. And I remember days in this cycle, in the month of February, where Apple was like, wow, this market, Apple's kind of holding up this market. And then while everything else was kind of like trying to gain some bids, Apple dumped out and was being more heavy on the market. So, anyways. Things change. That's why when, people always say, yeah, I do these historical studies and I back test since the Egyptians were building the pyramids, and this thing seems like it was going to be working out. It's a 95% hit rate. It's like, yeah, well, that worked when the Egyptians were building the pyramids, man, right? So things always change. So that's the thing. So a lot of smart people do a lot of studies and things like that, but it almost gets outdated by especially these days. Things happen very quickly and they change very quickly. So for what it's worth, we'll see. I'm not sure if that's going to happen again, where Apple's kind of holding strength and it's going to dump out. Okay. It got weird in here real fast. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, yes, it's good to like back test and get studies and things like that. All right, but that's why there's something in the profession in trading and investing. There's buy side and sell side, right? So firms spend a lot of money and invest into people that provide sell side data, which is going to be data just to help probabilities in favor. All right, but they don't necessarily know how to trade, right? They're very smart and they can crunch numbers to the nth power, right? But how do you apply that numbers into the market, and how do you apply those numbers into a constantly changing market, right? A constantly changing market. Not to bring politics in. One thing that we don't do at Phantoms is bring politics into it. But hypothetically, if we had a different president in the camp, and right now, it'd be totally different, right? So how could you front run that and build a model regarding that? So the best thing to do is just have an edge, have a setup, have a process, have a system. Okay, demand, supply, buyers and sellers. No matter what, that's the bottom line. What you're going to be doing. Know when to buy, know when to sell. at the right timing in terms of higher time frame levels of demand and supply, and be non-emotional regarding that. All right, that said, we got Amazon here. Moving on. All right, enough of the TED Talk. We got Amazon come down lower, right? So we talked about this yesterday being Monday with the kind of the prep session here. All right, so we got Mega Fang stock, the Magnificent Seven, if you will, coming down into some some decent levels, right? Some decent levels. I was talking with the Mr. Green and Mr. Black. We do a podcast a little bit for fun, and I was mentioning how why is it that people feel so comfortable buying Amazon as it's up to 25-30% for the year at all-time highs. Okay, but then when you got you got some stocks that are coming down 20, 30, 40% drop down here, people are scared to buy it. Okay, so you want to buy stocks lower, right? Now the question is, the $1 trillion question is, where does it stop and where's going to be the low? So we can't try to call that all-time low, okay? But just got to prepare for it, okay? This could be the low. I'm not sure, but if we do go low, we got an October low here, we got a September low here. If we snap that, okay, we also got the August low down here, and that goes to be said with every stock, right? So as one point of advice just here for YouTube, one point of advice for YouTube is prepare you be investing in mags. Yeah. Yeah, they're the biggest companies in the world, man. What kind of question is that? What kind of question is that? Of course. Heck yeah. All right. Anyways, I digress. So AVGO. Well, regarding the gap here for today, slight gap down on Amazon. Slight gap down on Amazon. Inside gap. A lot of these are going to probably most likely inside gap because of the big move yesterday. Our AVGO did come down into a nice little monthly area of demand over here to the left. All right. Slight gap down, inside gap. Googs. Google coming down. So yeah, these markets came down. Yesterday we moved down, red bar, gap down. That was a novice gap in most tickers yesterday. So that was another reason why I got long basically off the a couple minutes off after the open yesterday on SPX and just rolled longs, right? So we did have this Google tag down in here at the 150 area. Okay, I'm also looking at the 142 in the event that we're not done yet here, but we got some monthly levels over here to the left in orange, as mentioned, right? So slight gap down on this, so it'll be pretty interesting today. Today might be a little bit of a digestion day, but we'll see. Tesla, yes, it's a political stock right now. Whatever, I digress, but people are going to be people. People fighting with people. What do you know? So, close here, slight gap up. Now Tesla is one of the only ones that is gapping up. Okay, well a lot of other the Magnificent Seven stocks, if you will, are gapping down. Tesla is gapping up. Okay, it is gapping up, so it is showing a little bit of relative strength. All right, so we'll see if that continues. But so we got to be careful with this one here. All right, but it was pretty interesting. We were mentioning this yesterday in the live session, where on the weekly time frame, if I kind of stop moving this chart, we are coming down into some interesting levels. I'm kind of hoping that it does get down into the August and June lows of last year. Call it the 182 to the 160 area. Okay, the 160 to 182 lower down here. However, we did kind of dip into this weekly level of demand, which was awesome. It comes in at 220, and we bounced off of that. Now we did do kind of like a inside bar dual kind of doji hammer, whatever you kind of want to call these, right? Whatever your nomenclature is. I don't really care about the name. All right, who cares? It's what it does. We have some, the buyers pick this up. Okay, and we had a gap up. However, we had a gap up and then move up, came up into this level. A yearly VWAP, not yearly VWAP, monthly VWAP, and then we had another topping tail here. So the point that I'm trying to make here, long story short, or to make a short story long, is we have dueling wicks here. So we have buyers here pushing it up, and then we have sellers here pushing it down. So we kind of are in the middle of this kind of battlefield of buyers and sellers going through, going at it right now, right? So pretty interesting here in Tesla. Now today, slight gap up. So it would show potential relative strength. Now we have to see if that continues. All right, my Phantoms members know how to trade what's called the tape, the price action. So we want to make sure that that is off the open. We don't have a gap up, what's called a gap and crap, where we just gap up and we just fade lower all day today. Okay, if the market's going to be fairly heavy as well. Now, if we do gap up, okay, and we come down lower a bit here, it could be a test of the prior day's high, yesterday's high, which is like right there, comes in about 260, give or take, and then we have a gap now, an unfilled gap right here, based on yesterday's close with this gap up here. So that's something that you might want to put on your radar. All right. Yes, and we are gapping up into supply. Good job. Just missed the name on that, whoever that was. But yes, good job. Indeed, you want to be looking at that as well, because it is gapping up into, it was Modi, my man. All right, we are gapping up into some stuff here. Okay, this is the pre-market quote. There's an unfilled gap here as well. All right, so just be careful with that. Just because Tesla's gapping up and it's an outside gap up, and it's one of the only few that's gapping up, all the Magnificent Seven are gapping down, does not mean that we're just going to gap up and rip up. All right, well, Bell open. Wanted to get to Microsoft there. Let's get a quick peek at internals. This market's just opened. Advanced declines, literally, basically negative 62, which is very close to the zero line. Vol D, volume up versus volume down on the New York Stock Exchange, slightly lower, very early, but just taking a peek at that, too early for cumulative tick. VIX hovering in the middle. All right, be patient. Let me make sure GEX is loaded here. Make sure things are working here. All right, not much strong gamma right now anywhere, so we're gonna have to let this fill in. Right now, Tesla, Google has wide range bar off open. Meta as well, decent. All right, so if you wanted to take Tesla bullish here, Meta as well, looking fairly decent off the 200 period moving average inside of a beautiful level location wise. Meta's beautiful. This might even be good, decent for a little bit of a swing trade off of here as well in addition. All right, Meta, just because of the location that we are at in the higher time frame, being the monthly and the weeklies, versus kind of like Tesla kind of in the middle here, Meta might be a bit of a better play just to put more probability in your favor. I can't get too excited with SPX bullish unless we get above that 5600 level. Google all looking fairly decent, trying to hold there. We have to watch out for a bit of a bull trap here. All right, advanced declines decreasing a bit there, so that's a little heavy. Negative Gex is trying to pile in here. It was hard to trust Tesla. Which is why I mentioned Meta might be definitely the better one there. Nvidia is heavy. Semiconductors is still just taking some heat. Nvidia long put coming out of a bit of a supply area too. Nvidia long put. AMD weaker as well. Excuse me. Meta trying to form something here. Not quite yet. Want to be patient. All right, really, there's nothing to stop this price. Lower. Gex is negative here. SPX breaking down a little bit here. So you try to work on some SPY puts, Q puts. SPY, so I'm gonna get SPX here, or SPX, I'll have SPX. Nvidia long put. Everybody snag Nvidia long put, working on the bear side. Bearish. All right, and there's a positive gamma node at 55.15 handle. That's about a 14 delta right now on SPX. I want to be a little patient with that. still trying to work it. All right. So I'm going to pick up this 55.15 strike put on SPX. All right, just bought this for 420. Want to be careful with this one. We are kind of trying to reclaim VWAP a bit here, and you can see the in Google. Get this in the other account. All right, I want to be a little cautious with this one here at 55.15. So if we I could be wrong easily. It looks like I'm already going to be wrong on that. Oops. All right, so let's go to see how we react and respond at 5,600 on SPX. All right, but for right now, I bought a put. I'll just make a red box here. And if that's wrong, I'll just cut it. Amazon, nice follow through here. Gap fill coming up. It's a little mixed right now. This 5,600, I should say, is a positive gamma node. So it's gonna be a little hard to kind of break that. So again, that 5,600 is something that I'm just looking at. SPX. That the bulls would have to really reclaim to get up there for this market to go. But we'll see. But put is bearish, of course. NVIDIA at VWAP. Not as an exciting open as yesterday. What's going on? All right, if you want to TP some of these puts, if you got in here, bottom at 420, they're going for 470 right now, 460. Well, not anymore. They were going for 470, 460. Now they're at about break even. All right, so far, opening day's range is sideways. First 15 minutes, kind of sideways right now, right? All right, Meta. New high TP, if you got that. Yeah, NVIDIA's, it's a very odd open right now. It's on its kind of VWAP here. So I just gotta be patient with it. Google, new high. So I was too slow on taking profit on these puts, so we gotta be careful with these. I was too slow here. Google new high. So Fang's catching some bids here. Gex is changing it a little bit. There's some sold calls here. So I just gotta be patient. Meta squeeze above 600, somebody had asked. You see Meta. I gotta cut this. This was profitable, I gotta cut this. I was too slow on this. Let me cut this clear. All right, I'm going to cut SPX for now. It was too slow on the take profit. At least I would have had TP1 on it, but didn't do it, so it's all good. I'm just trading lightly right now on this. Yesterday was a monster day. Meta above 600 squeeze. Yeah, potentially sold call wall here. Yeah, there's a little squeeze on Meta above there. All right, VIX drop. All right, we got a opening day's range break here, so I'm gonna switch long here. I'll pick up the 56.50 here. Calls on SPX. I just got them for 4, where's it, 490? Choppy morning. Not really. Yesterday was an easy read. Oh, $5. Got these. Let me get my other account real quick. All right, I'm gonna put a target on here at, let's throw some limits here, 590. $6.90. Microsoft new high on day. Apple hitting its view up there. Microsoft above prior day's high, a little bit of some strength on FANG, just a little bit here off open very early. So nothing too like super exciting here today. Yesterday was awesome because of the JP Morgan caller, was just providing so much sauce, so much stuff. So we do have a little bit of a negative gamma regime up here, but you can see very light colors here. So not a lot of fun stuff. Not a lot of fun stuff today. GX turning positive. Google just made new high. Tesla chop. Microsoft breadwinner. Turned out to be the breadwinner. NVIDIA is starting to flip a little bit here too, but very choppy. So if yesterday you had a really good day, just let this market kind of unwind a little bit here. Friday's big move down. Monday you had a nice little move up. So just gotta stay focused. There's not a lot of flamboyant colors here, so that's letting me know that it's a little it's kind of choppy a little bit here, right? You can see the SPX battle in the 5600 handle here. All right, we are trading above that. Got stopped out on the puts. Then bought some calls here. We'll see if I can if this market can pick up. If not, get stopped out and it'll be choppy, and I'll just continue to update. But that said, I gotta hit the restroom real quick. So, just be choppy. I might be wrong on these two. So it's very choppy today. So you might want to wait a little bit for things to kind of unravel and develop a little bit here more. All right, we got things that are gapping down, moving up. Things that are moving down, gapping up, moving down a little bit. So just choppy right now. All right, above VWAP, 5-minute bar close, positive COG. That's something that you can lean against here on SPX SPYs specifically is what I'm looking at here. So I can lean against this bar. If this wide range, if this bar gets taken out, I'm just gonna have to stop myself out. We're back in the opening day's range and just chop. So, but very early. Markets will develop, and we could potentially take some setups later. And if it's going to be a range day, potentially it's too early to call that right now. But if so, if you know how to also do credit spreads, you can begin to do that too. But it's a little too early for that right now. We'll see if we can get some convexity movement here. All right, but this will be the stop loss. Basically, look at the 5-minute bar, 5-minute candle here. If that gets taken out, just out, wrong, just admit wrong, cut, and keep it moving. All right, that said, if you want to learn a little bit more about this, I see some Phantoms members in here. Welcome. Of course, they're awesome. If you want to check it out, go to TradePhantoms.com, hit on register there. Pretty standard. And then we got Thursday, April 3rd, right? 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Name, email, all that good stuff. Click register. You get sent an email, get registered for about 90-minute class, give or take. Right, Mr. Black, Mr. Green, one of them will sometimes both of them will walk you through what Phantom is all about, how we trade, demand supply, how markets work, all assets, stocks, futures, forex, options, even crypto, right? So short-term trading, long-term wealth management, everything here, kind of like a one-stop shop for everything trading and investing. If you like it, great. If not, that's cool as well. And that said, I'll see some of y'all Phantoms members later for futures focus classes. And just trade lightly right now. I'm kind of dipping toes in right now. Choppy. So just stay strong, let it develop. As always, markets will unravel some opportunities if you're ready for it. Right? Make sure you put your stop loss at certain levels and just be okay being wrong. All right. That said, God bless. Take care. Trade safe. Be safe. Blue out. Until next time. Cheers.